Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Cassandra Williamson with our Action Group News and Talk Show at 11 Central, noon Eastern. I'm coming to you from the wonderful state of Alabama. And there's kind of a play on a lot of words there. It's a lot of state of, well, whatever. We got Senator Tuberville down here, who's, as far as I know, still holding up all those appointments for our military officers in a time of crisis. Senator, stop. We in Alabama, especially the veterans, many of the veterans, whom I know anyway, including some of our flag and senior flag officers and general officers who retired, call Alabama home, many of whom can't speak for themselves. Well, they don't like that. You're wrong, Senator. You need to lift this darn hold. All right, now, I didn't really mean to jump into that, but, that's how this mind of mine works. It kind of goes all over the darn place, and I cover all kinds of territory really quickly with a lot of stuff into it. And but I do want to give you an update on this past weekend. I spent Sunday, the entire day, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There was a summit with the American Veterans for Equal Rights, one of the older organizations in the nation, and for equal rights for LGBT veterans, and AVER or AVER, depending on with whom you speak. But they're the oldest one out there for LGBT rights in the nation, fighting for it. Been doing it for a long time now, since 1990. What is that, 33 years now? So anyway, yeah, they've been at it for a while. And some of the members who are still active within it have been doing it for 33 years, 32 or 33 years. And so they've been around for a long time doing this and pushing it out there. So they had a summit this past weekend in Fort Lauderdale. And I was invited to come down to participate in a discussion. And my particular topic was about the VA and the promise of the surgical options for gender affirming care for our veterans. And there's some discussion about that. Well, I'll cover a little bit of that in a minute too, just for anyone who wants to be brought up to date. And really, it hasn't changed a whole lot from like 2 or 3 months ago. It's still in the same place it was then. No new word on it. I do have a query out there with one of my friends in the Secretary's office, Secretary McDonough's office, to kind of to get a feel for what's going on and what the progress might be. So anyway, with the conference down there, that's my topic in Fort Lauderdale this past Sunday. So there was me there, as well as Emily Schilling. Many of you may know Emily Schilling. She is active duty Navy commander, F-18 pilot. And she's there. She's the president of SPARTA, which is the active duty transgender active duty organization. That's their primary focus, is active duty members. And, there's a lot of us in the military, a lot of trans people, a lot of LGBT people in the military. As a matter of fact, we serve at a rate, and she mentioned this statistic there while that was one of the talks that she had. She mentioned this statistic that we're there at 2.5 times, 3 times greater than our civilian counterparts. The people who aren't LGBT, there's more of us there. The military is the biggest employer for LGBT people, biggest employer for trans people. And there's a reason for that, because typically the military has always been, there's been some struggles and some difficulties along the way, but they've been the place where new things are pushed out there that actually bring more people in and get a better perspective and a greater diversity. And then they do strive at inclusion and work on it. And you have the structure that you have to abide by and the rules and regulations. So it really doesn't leave room for any kind of other way to proceed other than to be inclusive. However, there's always bumps in the road, always difficulties at a door that you have to knock on sometimes if you want to get your flat clearance, for instance. Sometimes it can be a little challenging or daunting, but I don't know that that's significantly different than what anyone else may experience, because I do know that my son is going through the same kind of stuff, trying to get his flight status reinstated. And so I know that it's a laborious process. They don't do it quickly, but they don't do it quickly for a reason too. So there are valid reasons for doing it that way, on slow rolling some of these things. But you throw into the mix into that gender dysphoria and all of that, And then the people who are doing the assessments have a hard time figuring all of it out. They just can't figure that, hey, that's another human being right there. Let's just go ahead and let them go. I mean, like any other human being, why the heck would you apply a different standard to them just because they're, well, they had experienced gender dysphoria, or, were taking hormones? But that's whatever. It doesn't make a lick of difference. They're still doing their job. And for Commander Schilling, I mean, I think she mentioned the number of, like, by this time she's at 05. She's been in a number of years, quite a few years, and they probably plowed $40 million into all of her training and all that kind of stuff. But you know what's really crazy, though? That if the Heritage Foundation gets its Project 2025 stood up, my friend Emily would not be able to do her service, complete her mission. My friend Bree would not be able to complete her service in the Space Force. It's like, if you want to eliminate those words and you take away all of the care that's associated with that, and you're trying to find other words to use to describe that, but you're still doing the same thing, well, that's they'll go after all of it. And whatever the word is that describes it, if it includes these words like sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion, reproductive rights, intersectionality, those kind of things, any of those words, the SOGI and the DEI stuff, sexual orientation, gender identity, if it includes stuff like that, that's what the Heritage Foundation wants to do, is remove all those words from the whole of the federal enterprise. But there is hope, though. And that hope resides in the fact that, hey, we can stir up this community that we have now. We can stir up Americans, all of us Americans, and actually, hopefully, get a fire lit under most of Americans and say, look, Heritage, we're not doing that ever again, period. It stops now. America's got to get up off of its ass and go tell these people. And with Project 2025, and Heritage had put $22 million toward this. And the number of organizations that are supporting their Project 2025, it's increasing. There was 70 like a couple of weeks ago, 75 now. I mean, they started working on this in April of 2022. It's a very deep, well thought out strategic plan, and they will implement the darn thing. Why? Because they don't like anyone who's different. Or at least they don't want you to have any kind of way to identify yourself within the whole of the government that makes you different from everybody else. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. In other words, maintain this majority status and majority power of those in power already. Because they're kind of threatened by us for some reason. Yeah, well, that's the way it is, folks. So if we can start now. If we wait until November of 2024 and hope that everybody gets out there and they're riled up over about all of this stuff, if we can hope for that by then, but we're just hoping, we're not doing anything about it, then if they win the presidency, but a conservative wins the presidency in November of 2024, and then on January the 20th at noon in 2025, when that person says, so help me God, Heritage Foundation, Project 2025, Heritage Action, and those 75 other organizations associated with all this, they will have a whole list of people prepped, trained, vetted, ensuring that they have the capability of getting a security clearance and all these kind of things. They will have done it all. And all that this new president has to do is say, all right, where's your list? And then Project 2025 hands over a list of 20,000 names or so and says, hey, look, these are the ones who have been trained for this department. These are the ones who have been trained for this department. These are the ones trained for this particular office. But the thing that they want the president to do first is implement Schedule F right away. And that's the one that President Trump had in place. And so that's what they want to do. They want to make sure Schedule F is there. But what does Schedule F do? President Trump had it up. President Biden removed it. President Trump, the Schedule F actually makes every employee within the federal government, above a certain pay grade, all at-will employees. At will means you can be fired at will if whatever they decide, and you can be hired at will too. I mean, whatever they want. In other words, you talk about families hiring families, people hiring their friends. The whole all the federal agencies will become politicized in such a way that you can't even imagine what that's like now. We have no clue because we don't have any kind of recollection of it. They used to be that way. Ostensibly, Project 2025 is to reduce the size of the federal government, but they're not going to do it right away. Because what they want to do right away is go in there, get Schedule F up and running, executive order. The next thing, by executive order, they will remove all of the DE&I programs, all the minority service programs, all of the programs directed towards minority people and across the government as much as they can. They will direct the military to remove LGBTQ plus people, particularly trans people. Their focus will be on that, who are actively serving, and we have paid millions and millions and millions of dollars for these people to be able to walk in there and do their jobs, like my friend Commander Schilling. So, I mean, and there's just a wholesale despisement. I don't know another word to describe it, how it's supposed to look or sound, but I can tell you that that's what they're wanting to do. They state it clearly, they state it forcefully, they have a plan, they're carrying it out, and it's happening every moment. We see it across the whole of all the campaigns. On the conservative side, you see that they're following this particular pattern, this narrative that's been developed by Heritage. Project 2025, it's all there. You can see them. They're just following right along with the narrative that Project 2025 is written out. You can see the same thing happening in Congress and the House of Representatives with all of those bills that put in there the removal of different agencies, removal of people, removal of their offices, defunding of people because which one was it? Boebert or Green? I don't know which one, but one of those two had put in a rider into the appropriations bills that takes Sean Skelly's payday down from whatever it is now to $1, because Sean Skelly is the senior most person who has been appointed by the president to fill a role in the Department of Defense, who's trans. And I can't think of any reason why they want to drive her salary down to $1 except to force her out. And I'll be darned if that is not the height of hypocrisy and everything that we do not like in this country. I mean, but there is hope, folks. You know what that hope consists of? That hope consists of all of us finally getting together and realizing that, hey, we've got to do something to fight these darn people. They are after this. They will do it. They tried it once back in the 1980s with President Reagan. They actually put together a document that gave it to him right after he was sworn in. And within 100 to 180 days, they were able to get about 60% of it accomplished across the whole of government. In Reagan's time, it wasn't as well organized or planned or thought out as Project 2025. They consider that one with Reagan as a failure because they only got 60%. Now they have a plan, a very strategic plan with everything in their address that needs to be addressed, and their sole goal. On the outside, it looks like they want to shrink federal government, and that's what they hope to do eventually. But first, you've got to remove all those words they don't like from every rule and policy and regulation, even from grant applications and grant processes. All those words they don't like, like sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion, minorities, intersectionality, reproductive rights, the word abortion. They want to remove all of those from across the whole government. And I want to tell you, what happens when you do that? Well, you're going to close down some offices that have been doing this kind of work for a long time, particularly on the research side, and also particularly in taking care of veterans and their military. You're going to shut down all the offices, the D&I offices, the diversity, equity, inclusion offices, all those offices that actually help recognize first the diversity that's among us, and then figure out ways to make sure they're included. All these different peoples are included. Their voices are heard. They have a seat at the table, and their voices, we listen to them. We hear them. That's what those things do with DNI programs and offices. But then you go after the SOGI stuff, the sexual orientation, gender identity stuff. Well, what's next with that one? Well, let me see. National Institute of Health has a SOGI department that does research determining the social determinants of health and the impact of all of those people, all of those things on the well-being of sexual orientation, gender identity identified people. Okay. And it's a real thing. It's measurable. The impact, the social determinants of health is real in those areas. But yet here we are with a Heritage Foundation not wanting to even look at it because, I don't know, I guess the words offend them. But right after they list this list of words, they put a comma on there. And then they go, and any other word that offends the First Amendment rights of Americans. That's just craziness, people. What you're saying is that there may be some people out there who have those labels attached to them, but they aren't protected by the First Amendment like we are because we're Americans and they're not. That's what that's saying, folks. That's what that is saying. This impacts every single American in this country. You or your family or a friend or someone in your community. This is going to impact if they are able to accomplish that thing. And don't tell me that they can't do it, that it'll just go away if we pretend it's not there. No, no. It will come about, especially if we keep our heads stuck in the sand, pretend it's not around. But if we can put a spotlight on it, maybe the rest of the country between now and November of next year in 2024, maybe we can get enough people out there saying, Heritage, you're wrong. This is effed up. You've got to stop. Project 2025, don't even dare to try to do that. I mean, we've got to get everybody all right. And that's the hope, though. I hope we can do that. I hope that you see the seriousness of this, whether you're in the LGBTQ club community or not, whether you're in any minority or whether you're not. If you're an American, as we all are who were born in this country, and many of us who are naturalized here, regardless of our ideologies, and that's another conversation. But, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. So we've got to stand up and do something. I mean, regardless of who you are, regardless of any characteristic of yours, if you were born here, you have citizenship. You're naturalized here, you have citizenship. That makes you an American. This impacts you. This impacts that measure of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that all of us are entitled to. It impacts everything that has to do with, the First Amendment protections and all of the amendments and the entire Constitution under which we all live. So, I mean, they're really trying to draw a line between all of those who have those labels and the rest of America. And they even go so far as to say real people and natural people as opposed to unnatural. The word unnatural is in there. I mean, Dr. Roberts, who's the author of the foreword in which that's located. My God, I don't know what, I don't know where you would have come up with anything like that with your degree, Dr. Roberts, in early American history. It just blows me out of the water to think that you could even say something like that. Because if you've read anything by Hamilton or read anything in depth, seriously, by Jefferson or Madison, you'll know how asinine that is. They weren't building a theocratic fascist nation. As a matter of fact, like Matt Walsh calls himself. Matt Walsh considers himself to be a theocratic fascist. And what you're doing in the Heritage Foundation with Project 2025, I mean, the Heritage Foundation has fallen so far into an abyss over in the right side. Wait, I don't even know where the bottom is in that darn hole you fell into, because nothing we throw in there after you to try to rescue you seems to be working. We can't reach you. You're so far down in that hole. Oh my God. And then you're trying to shout out at all the rest of us saying, come on down here. This is where real Americans live. And we're going, oh, hell no. We're not coming down there with you. Yeah, we're real Americans too. We're Americans, period. Don't need a qualifier in front of it. We're Americans. We're neither real nor unreal. We just simply are Americans because of birth or because of naturalization. And whatever that method is, then you're an American, and we serve for your right to think and believe whatever it is you want. But however, you do not get to impose those things on the rest of the country, particularly when they start rolling back the rights and protections granted to us by the Constitution. That's just got a good word, anybody? I don't know. I can't even imagine something like that. I know, and I'll be very blunt about this, I know there are people on our side, on the side who are standing up for all the minorities. I know there are people out there who have gone way over in the ditch on the left side too. And it can be just as wrong there as it is on the right. But I do not expect either group to call the other one un-American simply because they have a different way of perceiving what their ideologies and how those ideologies are applied across the nation. Within this document that Dr. Roberts wrote, he directly calls people like me unworthy of the protections of the First Amendment. And, he lumps us together with pornography and child sexualization and stuff like that. But you know something? Every group they don't like through history, at least since the 50s, 1950s, they've done that too. Probably way before then, but that's the earliest I've seen it. And I mean, if you're gay or whatever, I mean, they didn't worry too much about lesbians then because they weren't concerned with the women. They were only concerned with those less than masculine men, but those less than masculine men are actually more masculine than many of the people who are straight men. They're more of a man than most of those people are, it seems to me like. So I really don't know. I mean, it started back then. So they started associating gays with that, or homosexuality with pornography and all these things. But they didn't directly do it. It was actually a lot of the early psychologists at the time did the same thing. It took them a while to figure out that, that's not correct. But yet that old way of thinking stuck in the popular culture and popular thinking. So it came from there because the psychologists lumped together any kind of thing that wasn't the norm for sexual expression or gender expression or identities. Any of those things, if they weren't the norm, meaning where most of the people were there, then they got lumped into this perversion category over here or something like that in our early understanding of psychology of the human mind. But like all sciences, these things evolve and change and grow and mature because more research shows something else, and more research kind of refines what we knew and takes away some things and changes our thinking on things. Because, I mean, that's just a natural process of actually rational thought and thinking, right? I mean, that's just the way this is done. But yet they lumped us all together in this one big old melting pot of horribleness. And then the popular culture picked it up and just ran with it, particularly the religious right, who already had a problem with all of us who are different than themselves, including African Americans, including our Americans of color. I mean, it was them. They're the ones who said, no, we're not going to go for that blending of our races down here in the South. I live in the city where Wallace stood in the front door of the schoolhouse and said, segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, or yesterday, however he said that. But anyway, George Wallace, schoolhouse door. It took him a little while to come around, but he eventually realized he'd made a huge mistake there. He was a little bit quicker on the uptake and learning than most of the people who are pushing this crap and been trying to do it for 50 years in terms or more, 70 years, trying to lump all of the ones they disagree with into this one box so they can hate them and depersonalize them and dehumanize them. And that's what they are doing. That's what they are doing, is trying to dehumanize us because, I mean, it makes it easier for any of you in the military. If you could find a way, if your leaders can find a way to dehumanize your enemy through either slang words or not just slang, but derogatory names for the population as a whole, it makes it easier for you to do what you're told with your rifles, your guns, and your knives, your missiles. Because if you can dehumanize these people and you find enough evidence to, kind of you cherry pick these things and make your enemy look like they're less than human, then that's how you can get your armies to go in and actually commit to try to win against these people. Because you dehumanize them, makes them easier to go out there and kill them. And that's what they've been trying to do for years. They tried it with the gays and the lesbians. That didn't seem to stick real well, but the same thinking got rolled over towards trans people. So here we are today. This extremism over there on the right is actually trying to dehumanize us now. And they figured out a way to do it because, I mean, the way this kind of minority stress thing occurs is that if you can punch down to the one that's the smallest number size or less than you in terms of, or so different from you, then you can rile up. And if you can persuade people to do that, you can rile up all the other minorities who have greater numbers above them. And you can start pulling away people to go after the ones below, because if you're going after the ones below, they're not going after you, right? At least that's what you think. But once they've got that one out of the way and you're the next one up, it's the group above you that says, okay, we're going to pick that one off now to preserve our own identities. And then eventually there's no one left to pick off because they've already picked them all off. And that's exactly what's going on right now, because we see it with other minorities hating on and trying to draw lines over the transgender people. And then we even see it within the trans community, people trying to separate out, the trans identities from the rest of the LGBT space, the LGB space. And they're different. They're hugely different, because the LGB is sexual orientation, whereas T is gender identity, and that's not sexual orientation. There are many transgender people have all of those identities as lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, whatever. All those things are identified with the trans people. I mean, we have a sexual orientation, like you, like anyone watching. You have a sexual orientation, you have a gender identity. For some of you, it may be that you're just a straight white male or a straight white female. Fine. And your gender identity matches that your anatomical sex of male matches your gender of male. I mean, that's the way it works. But when you start studying the genetics of this and the biology behind it, you realize that that's really not entirely accurate, because it is actually more like, if you know anything about probability theory, it becomes fuzzy around the edges. All of these things, like trying to define an electron or trying to define what a quark is, there's fuzzy around the edges of that. I'm trying to measure where it is or how fast it's going, whatever, those kind of things actually are statistically fuzzy. And I know it get wonky and all of this kind of crap, but I'm going to tell you, you've got to understand where we're coming from. You've got to understand why this is such a big deal. And oh my gosh, just fight. There is hope for all of this, folks. There is hope. There is hope. We can actually pull this off. But for the next few minutes, though, I want to change tack slightly, because I want to go in and talk more about some of the stuff that happened down in Orlando, or not Orlando, but Fort Lauderdale with the AVR Summit, the American Veterans for Equal Rights Summit. So I'm there as executive director for TDVA and TDVA Action Group. Emily Schilling is there as the president of Sparta. And then they also held elections in AVR this past weekend for AVR's president, vice president, and secretary. I think it was that. It might have been treasurer. I'm not sure, but there were three spots open. Two of them were the president and vice president. So, and it's really interesting because another person who is also a veteran like myself, like Emily, in the trans community, actually became the president, the national president for AVR, which is absolutely just phenomenal now. So we got 3 organizations, the oldest one, and then the middle-aged one there with Sparta, and then our organization as the youngest, and all of the leaders of these organizations are trans and veterans. But what was really cool, and I'm going to see if I can find this. I'm going to see if I can dig up a picture in the background. I'll share some pictures with you if I can find where they are here. Let me go up and do this. Let me find some pictures. Pictures. Let's go 2023. That one. Folder. Open. Got it. Okay, give me a second, folks. We're going to go look at some photos. Are you ready? Are you ready? We're going to do this. Okay. Let me see what I can pull up here. And here. All right. So I'll just start here and we'll just scroll through some pictures. Okay. I'll put it over here so I can share this particular screen, present, share screen, the window, going to share that one and share. So right now you should be looking at, let me make sure where you are looking. Yeah, okay, so you're looking at an image. I'm going to see, now this was out the hotel window overlooking Fort Lauderdale Boulevard, the beach boulevard right there. I never once got a chance to go put my toes in the sand or the water, but that's fine. I've done that a lot. You know, I love doing it though. I hear Emily told me that the water was really, really warm. So that was the first one, and that's looking down that same street, that boulevard further down. And I hope you can see these things, but this one is also, I thought this was interesting. It's a little fishing trawler or something out there. I'm not sure. It could have been anything really, but I just saw it way off in the distance and thought I would just blow it up and see what happens to the image. And let me go. Okay, right there. Okay, so now you're looking at Emily Schilling over on the left. That's Commander Schilling. And Penn Baker in the middle, president of AVR. Emily's the president of Sparta, and me as the executive director for TDVA. We've got these 3 organizations all standing together, these 3 people all standing together as, you know, Penn had been made the national president for AVR, which is just cool. And so as soon as they get their press release stuff together, I'll send one out for them on their behalf, which is great. So next picture, let me see, is more of the same. I think I kind of have some goofy smiles. I stick my head up in the air a lot, apparently. I don't know why. I do that an awful lot. Let's try to get through some of these. Let me see. Okay. That's Penn and I. And some other people who wanted their pictures taken in front of the banner for AVR veterans. Let's scroll on through. We got some of those. There's Penn and them as well. I mean, it was a really good experience to be there to see this. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit more. How about that? There we go. Let's go and share. Look at the next one. There's several like that. We'll just go through some of these things. I don't know what that one is. Who knows? Or that one. I think it might have been up through some green trees or something. That's Danny Ingram back there doing the salutes at the dinner. We were inside the American Legion post. And Danny had got up, Danny Ingram, public affairs and president emeritus of AVR, and was giving some toasts and such for different branches of the military or different branches where there were uniformed service members. So, I mean, obviously he's going to start out with the Army. And so, we start out the Army and go to the Navy, the Air Force, Marines, Space Force, and the National Guard, Merchant Marines. They left a few of them out, so I got up to do a couple of them. I did one for National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, as well as the Public Health Administration that Danny was standing beside me when he did that one. So here we are. Just, don't know what that picture is or how it got there. And this, what you're looking at, is obviously Penn Baker, Navy, enlisted in her uniform. There's Emily Schilling, Commander Schilling, the person in the blue suit. That's the mayor of Fort Lauderdale. And don't ask me to pronounce his name. I can't remember exactly. And that's me in the middle, obviously, Danny Ingram on one side. And this is another one of AVER's members. I think it's an AVER member. Yeah, this person AVER member. But the mayor of Fort Lauderdale happens to be an out gay man. And this city is very welcoming. Fort Lauderdale is really, and as a matter of fact, when he had a chance to speak, that's one of the things he mentioned, is that at the state level, at the state governance level, you hear all this stuff about anti this and anti that and all this. But he was saying down in the communities, though, most communities, most cities in a place aren't nowhere near that. So Fort Lauderdale is very welcoming. And I'm sure there are other places very welcoming too. And that's just the way it is. But I thought it was interesting. I did get a chance. And as is my modus operandi these days, if you know me at all, you know what I'm going to be asking the mayor, right? Hey, have you read or heard of Project 2025? Have you seen anything about that? And his response was, no, I haven't. What is it? And I said, well, have you heard of the Heritage Foundation? And I said, yes. So I explained to them what they want to do, and how forcefully they want to do it, and the money they put behind it, and how long they're making it happen. And I said, I suggest strongly that we figure out a way to make sure this thing is brought to light, that people understand the dangers associated with the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, because it is a real danger. And that's what I told the mayor. And that's what I told people with the American Legion posts there too. We just, got to share the word about all this stuff. But I think it's fascinating. You got all of us there. And I just love this picture. It's really good. And let me see if there's another one. I think that person who had my camera took several. It's the mayor when he spoke. And here we have, this is really good because Danny is getting the Matlovich medal. So which is given periodically, I think, to the most deserving or a very deserving person within the AVER community. And Danny got it this time around. And congratulations to Danny Ingram on the Matlovich medal. Maybe we'll get to see it in one of the shots here. I'm not quite sure. No, that's the floor. And that's Danny's husband, Eric Alva, on the right there, getting ready to put the Matlovich medal around Danny's neck. Da 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 da. That is just fantastic. Now this one's curious too. So here's what's getting ready to happen right here. You'll see Emily Schilling there. You'll the person in the back, Jules, in the white blouse, the past president now of AVER. And in front of Emily is Penn Baker. And Emily, being the only commissioned officer there in attendance, they asked her if she would swear in the officers for AVER, which they did. And I thought that was just so cool. Here you got Commander Schilling, president of Sparta, swearing in the new officers for AVER. And that's just so heartwarming and just such a powerful presentation and image. Let me just go right on through this. Emily is just, you can see present modern day military standing at attention. I mean, she's got it down. The rest of us, not so much. We just kind of get there. Oh my gosh, it was good. It was really good though. So anyway, that was that. That's that. That's that. And they handed over the gavel from Jules over to Penn Baker. And here we go. I'll have to take a trip out to New Mexico to visit with Penn sometime. Probably, well, I don't know when, but it's coming. Okay. That's some phone numbers I need to get. You don't need to see those. Okay, so that's a car I actually shared an image of with somebody else. So now we've gone too far into the images, and I'll stop sharing. So anyway, there we are, folks. There we are. And so it's a really good time down in Fort Lauderdale with AVER, and I'm so grateful for them for inviting me down to talk, and for inviting Emily down to talk as well with Sparta, and the opportunity that our three organizations had to get together and converse and talk and get to know each other a little bit better. And hopefully we can stand as a testament to what it takes to actually move forward against Project 2025. We can do it. We can do it. We just have to kick it in gear and go do it. It's really that simple. Go do. Go do. I had a friend out in Missouri. He was a B-2 pilot, I think. Yeah, B-2 pilot, Lieutenant Colonel, Air Force. And he said that he stopped using to-do list and he just changed it to go do, because to-do leaves it a little open, but go do is a little bit more direct and forceful. Go do, his go do list. I've used it ever since. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the day. I see no comments over there. I'm going to cut it off just about right now because I've got a few things I need to do before I come back on and do it again tonight. And as you can see, my hair is just all wonky. I've still got a suitcase back here in the back behind me from the flight down to Fort Lauderdale. And one of the people that I do want to give a big shout out to, one of the people who were there. They had these books there. This person was from I think they represented the national level or whatever, but there was also Heather Cherry was there. She is the veteran care coordinator for LGBT veterans from down in Miami. I had never met her in person, even though I've swamped her and everybody else with emails. But this book, I've got this resource. It's a participant handbook, VA Women's Health Re-Engagement Training, HEART. And so I've got 3 of them here. If anybody wants one, let me know. We'll make sure you get a copy. But also, you can probably find a lot of this information over on the VA's website. So there's some handouts in here into stuff, it's useful resources for people. That's the biggest thing. Let me see. Anything else we need to talk about, folks? Come on. Yes, I'm going to keep the heat and fire directed directly toward Project 2025 and anyone who is commenting about stuff like, I do have one funny thing to tell you. I follow Christopher Rufo as one of those talking heads and pseudo intellectuals over there that claim to know everything. And he's probably a pretty smart person, young person, and no doubt a smart person, and no doubt, a valued member of his community, and also an American. But also one of the talking heads and one of the teachers at Hillsdale College and a couple other places. He also sits on the board of New College of Florida. So, I mean, just a young man, but his ideologies are just Matt Walsh has got the cojones to tell you who he is. He's a theocratic fascist. Rufo doesn't, but he is still a theocratic fascist. And you've got Project 2025, which is theocratic fascism on steroids. Don't believe it? Just go look. Go look up Lawrence Britt and find the 14 characteristics that he distilled from a bunch of fascists to come up with, what universally identifies a fascist. Pretty obvious what those are. Go checking off there and go check mark. Oh, wait, that's 14 already there. Okay. Wear the label. That's who you are. So anyway, I'd been responding to one of his letters I mean, he had posted something about the transgender empire again. Actually, it was the same thing he had posted back in the summer, but it's put over on Imprimis, which is the news magazine put out by Hillsdale College. But I follow these things because I like to be in the know. Come on, got to be in the know what's going on, right? So they were talking about that, and then I said something, and then this person replied back. Tom replies back. So what is gender? I mean, he wanted a simple definition of gender, but it's not. It's much more complex than that. There's much more nuance than me just saying, "Oh, it's just a simple this." And somebody actually replied back with, "It's just this, and that's it." And I'm thinking, no. First thing we have to do is identify the common language we can use to define the terms that we're going to talk about, right? Because we all have different ways of understanding or different perceptions of what a word means. We may use it, we may know it in our head or whatever, but we have a perception of what that word is, and we use it based on that perception. Until we can come to a common understanding between your perceptions of words and my perceptions of those words, then whatever we say can be misconstrued easily and misinterpreted and completely off the wall. So I told Tom that, but I was sitting in Tampa at the airport for a layover there. But then by the time I got to the place where I could actually respond, I was in the air, had to get back to Birmingham. It was late last night when I was actually able to respond. And this morning I get up, I wrote a lengthy thing, I talked about different things in that thing to try to clarify who we are, why, not just who we are, but, the language that defines how we come to gender and its distinction between gender identity and gender expression, or any other characteristic for that matter. It's fuzzy. And people don't like to use that because it implies some kind of ambiguity, but that's the case. That's really how it is. So I replied back, and I got accused of being an AI chatbot. But Tom wasn't the first person to ever say that what I wrote sounded like it had been generated by a chatbot. And I just thought that was hilarious because, others have said the same darn thing, and I have to reply back and says, I think it's funny. I reply back and go, look, that was not written by AI. That's me. That's what I wrote. And I put LOL out at the end of it because the others have said the same thing. Whatever I write seems to sound like it was written by an AI chatbot. I don't know if that's let me see, a good thing or a bad thing, but I do know that that's what a lot of people are saying. But apparently it came across as being really academic and erudite. Oh, wait a minute. That sounded like a chatbot too. And I was telling another friend of mine from down in Florida, well, I was out this morning before I started this show, and had some breakfast out at the local Waffle House. I love Waffle House breakfast. It's so good. Oh my God. Ugh. You just want to go get in the vapors. But anyway, I told this person, my friend from down in Florida, what had happened with Christopher Rufo and Tom, the person who had commented. And my friend in Florida wants me to stop using words like gender and transgender and stuff like that. But in this environment, we've got to keep using them, because if we don't claim them and lock them down and they get erased, we'll never be found again. Not for generations. It'll take a long time. Because if they can strike those words out of the lexicon, out of any kind of description at the federal level, and they're doing it at the state level, because a bunch of, I think it was 19 attorneys general all went and supported this action down in Florida that wanted to strip away health care for transgender people through Medicare or Medicaid or whatever it is. No, they're not stopping at the federal level. The playbook they're following is exactly exactly the playbook that comes from Project 2025. And if you can't see it, I don't even know how to get you to see it, to get you to open your eyes up, to pull the blinds above your eyes so you can see more clearly, to pull the logs out of your eyes, and to get you to realize that it's more important, that this is so important. It's life affirming important, okay? To pretend this is not a real threat is to walk right into the lion's den and know you don't have God's protection. Go in there and say, those lions won't bother me because whatever. Well, no, I'm sorry to tell you, that's a bunch of crop. So anyway, it's really kind of annoying that we have so little interest in this, that so many people don't know about it. I mean, when I mentioned it to the whole group down there in Fort Lauderdale forever, they didn't know. Danny knew because I'd mentioned it, and Emily knew because I'd mentioned it. Penn knew because I'd mentioned it to her, but the rest of the people had no clue. They knew what Heritage was, but they did not know that they had produced Project 2025 as a way to erase and delete and excise us. So, I mean, there's so many people who don't, and I just don't get that. I mean, there is the hope that we need is for us to defeat that thing and put such a huge spotlight on it that no one even wants to get close to it, because we want to make that so toxic that no one touches it. So how do we do that? How do we make Project 2025 so toxic that no one in this country, no American in this country, will ever associate themselves with that filth? And I know some of you wanted to throw in there words like un-American, but no, these are Americans. I don't want to hear anyone in our community claim another group of Americans are un-American or anti-American. That is just so far wrong, it's pathetic. You might disagree with them, but that doesn't give you the right to call them un-American. They are Americans. And I mean that whether they're conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, independents, communists, socialists, whatever. If they're an American, but they believe all those ideologies, they're still Americans. So don't ever, ever, ever go down that road. I will turn that down. If somebody talks to me about stuff like that, you will know it from me. So anyway, there is hope, though. There is hope with all of this. There is a way forward, but it will take us turning that thing into such a toxic piece of crap. I mean, what it would be really great to have a bonfire. You know where I'm going? All right. So if we can buy up a bunch of those books, a bunch of the Project 2025 books, and have a bonfire, we're going to ban the book. I think that might be a good way. What do y'all think? We'll have a rallying cry around ban the book, only this time we're going to ban Project 2025. No, now look, I want to make it very clear that I do not believe in banning books, period. But I just do want to burn a bunch of them. Because I think if you ban books and knowledge contained or the ideas presented or whatever, you open yourself up for falling prey to all kinds of crap, because now you're closing off the door to even see things and understand things from someone else's perspective. And without that, you're incapable of strategic thought. Without that, you have no way of dealing with someone who is different, because, I mean, you've removed all references to their difference in your whole society. And that's exactly what those attorneys general want to do, the 19 who went after the transgender health care down for anyone down in Florida. It's the whole Washington Examiner posts about education and DE&I and the dangers and all that kind of stuff, and they're getting all up in arms about it. That's the same kind of stuff. Once you remove all the differences, you become so homogenous that you can't even conceive of another way of thinking, because you shut the door to it. So let's go out and get a bunch of those books. I'm not going to buy it, though, by the way, but we can do an online bonfire where we can have us a book burning and burn the darn crap out of Project 2025's book. and then dare anyone else to try to tell us otherwise. Because we are protected by the First Amendment, right? Well, I mean, they don't think we are. If you don't believe that's what's said in there, go find the darn thing yourself and read it. I'm not making this up. I'm not being overly dramatic about it. That is what's there, folks. And you can look around the country and see the narrative being foisted upon the whole of the country all the time. I mean, it just is obvious. You can see this narrative. You can see them using the playbook that they have created to move the nation in a direction they want it to go. I hope you don't fall prey to their bullshit. I do have one comment. I don't know who it is, and I apologize for not getting to you earlier. So let me just see here. Bonjour, us the friends from France watching over on Twitch. Bonjour, C2DRI, C2DRI. Hi. Bonjour. And I can actually mix up a bunch of languages when I say something like that. I can say, bonjour, mi amigo. Or like my friend out in California considers himself to be the Jewish pest from the West. Jewish pest of the West. Jewish queen. Freely tell you that. Been to every major conference and organization in the transgender space for the past 40 years and can remember details like it was just handed to them and they could read it right off the sheet. I'm thinking, really? But one of the things that he and I had been talking about for a while was having a kind of an event out in California. And maybe in 2025, hopefully we can pull it off. I don't know if we can. It's just an aspirational kind of thing at this point, because obviously all this stuff takes money. But one of the programs was called Shalom Amigos. And so I can say, bonjour, mi amigos. So anyway, to everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I do know that people like to keep these conversations down to about 15 or 16 minutes, but I have not yet found a way to be that concise. I guess I have to figure out a way to summarize everything I want to say in 16 minutes and still get it all across and come across so that you understand there is a way forward. We just have to get together to do it. So let's do that. Let's burn down the darn books. The Project 2025 book virtually, not in real life. Don't go doing something stupid, because that's what I said. If you do, I'll call you out as being just stupid. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. And